The story begins in a corporate office as a gorgeous woman enters, immediately drawing everyone's attention. A man from the acoustics department approaches her, assuming she is a new hire, and invites her to a drinking party. She silently rejects the offer by raising her hand to display a wedding ring. As the man realizes she is married, another co-worker steps in to explain her identity. She is Tuju Fuyuki, the highly capable and famous leader of the design team. The co-workers admire her, speculating that whoever managed to marry her must be a remarkable person. Meanwhile, in the engineering department, Hara Taiyu receives an urgent request to fix a software bug. As the lead engineer, he immediately begins working on the issue while worrying about their tight deadline. Tuju Fuyuki then walks over to greet him playfully. He panics, looking around nervously, and quickly types a message on his screen to warn her that someone might discover their marriage. She dismisses his concern, noting that the office is still mostly empty. Their interaction is briefly interrupted by a co-worker asking about an upcoming meeting, prompting her to head back to work. A flashback reveals that the couple only learned about the company's strict ban on workplace romance years after joining. When they initially approached the company president to announce their marriage, he was shocked and reminded them of the policy, which was meant to prevent distractions in their startup environment. However, since the president highly valued their exceptional talent, he granted them a special exception on the condition that they keep their relationship completely hidden from their colleagues. Back in the present, the office lunch break begins. A male colleague invites Fuyuki to eat together, but she promptly declines, claiming she is entirely too busy with work. Shortly after, she spots a female co-worker standing very close to Hara while asking him for assistance. Feeling protective, Fuyuki immediately walks over and interrupts their conversation. She reminds her husband that it is time to rest and urges him to take a break. He agrees without hesitation. Meanwhile, the female co-worker is left standing there, completely baffled as to why a team leader from an entirely different department would go out of her way to look after him. Later that day, Fuyuki finishes her shift in the design department. She heads over to the engineering floor, scanning her access card to enter. Finding Hara still glued to his monitor in the empty office, she gently leans close and reassures him that everyone else has already left for the day. He admits he was so engrossed in his task that he lost track of time. Since he is usually the one who handles the house chores, he asks if they can just grab something quick for dinner so he can keep working, hoping to free up his evening so they can finally spend some quality time together. She volunteers to take over the cooking and housework for the night. Determined to help her husband, she heads to the supermarket. When the cashier asks if she needs a plastic bag, she proudly declines, hilariously stuffing her groceries, including a large radish, straight into her expensive designer handbag. Once home, she puts on an apron and attempts to multitask by cooking and doing the laundry at the same time. However, she gets distracted while folding clothes, pausing to reminisce over an old favorite dress she can no longer wear. Suddenly, a terrible burning smell snaps her back to reality. She rushes to the kitchen only to find dinner completely charred. At that exact moment, Hara walks through the front door. He notices the smoke right away and quickly figures out what happened. Seeing her guilt, he sweetly comforts her and suggests they go out to a nice restaurant the following night since they have the day off. While he is excited about a real date, she immediately tenses up, likely worried about their co-workers spotting them in public. Wrapping her arms around him, she insists they just order takeout to eat at home instead. After stuffing themselves with delivery food, the couple ends up sleeping completely through the next morning. One morning, the alarm goes off at 6:30 a.m., waking Hara up. Beside him, Fuyuki cheerfully greets him. Noticing she is not using a blanket, he gently warns her about catching a cold, but she playfully insists that being near him keeps her warm. As she continues goofing around, he reminds her that they need to get ready for work. She heads to the bathroom to do her hair and makeup. Suddenly, she shouts from the washroom, prompting him to rush over in a panic. Instead of an emergency, she is simply admiring her own reflection and boasting about how pretty she looks. He turns away to hide his embarrassment, secretly thinking she is incredibly cute but refusing to admit it out loud. Instead, he compliments her new perfume, making her blush and happily declare that waking up early was worth it. Later at the office, a male co-worker greets her on the way to her desk and compliments her nice perfume. She immediately clarifies that the scent is strictly meant for her husband, leaving the co-worker feeling incredibly jealous. After finishing his shift, Hara heads home and texts his wife that he will prepare dinner. While walking, some schoolgirls on the stairs suddenly accuse him of secretly taking pictures of them with his phone. He frantically denies the accusation, explaining that he was merely texting, but the girls refuse to listen and call him gross. A male bystander intervenes to see what the commotion is about. Just then, Fuyuki arrives and confidently grabs her husband's hand, demanding to know why they are harassing him. Stunned by her intimidating presence and beauty, the girls quickly apologize and retreat. The bystander also realizes that a man with such a gorgeous wife would never need to take pictures of random girls. Safely back home, he thanks her for saving him from the misunderstanding. Suddenly having an idea, she rushes into the bedroom to check her closet. She soon emerges wearing an old school uniform, looking just like the students who accused him earlier. She strikes a pose and asks how she looks. While he admits the outfit brings back memories, he is utterly confused by the sudden dress-up. Playfully, she tells him that since he was falsely accused earlier, he can take pictures of her instead if he'd like, leaving him completely speechless. The following day, Fuyuki stands outside checking her phone, reading a message from Hara letting her know he will arrive shortly. Nearby, two young men notice her and, finding her incredibly attractive, approach to ask her out for tea. She politely declines, explaining that she is already waiting for someone. At that moment, her husband arrives and apologizes for the delay. She beams with happiness, but the two strangers burst into laughter, mocking his plain appearance and claiming the couple is a terrible match. They even ask how she could possibly not be ashamed to walk beside him. He quietly accepts the insult, but she immediately jumps to his defense. She proudly lists his best qualities, praising his simple clothes, natural hair, and exceptionally clean-cut look as incredibly cool. The men continue to laugh, assuming she is joking and insulting her taste in men. Unfazed, she shoots back that blindly following fashion trends does not make them stylish, adding that she would actually be deeply embarrassed to be seen with either of them. Seeing the situation escalating, he firmly tells the strangers to leave. Angered by her remarks, one of the men reaches out as if to grab her. Before the stranger can make contact, he steps in, swiftly intercepting the man's arm and twisting his wrist. Remaining perfectly calm, he orders the men not to touch his wife. Intimidated by his sudden display of strength, the troublemakers quickly turn and run away. Glad that his self-defense classes finally paid off, he gently offers his hand to her and suggests they get going. She happily takes it. They make their way to the station for their date. She mentions how nice it is to occasionally leave the house and take the train together. However, their romantic mood is quickly interrupted when the train finally pulls up, revealing that the passenger cars are completely packed. Hara realizes that a major event in the next town is the reason for the massive crowd. They board the packed train, forcing them to stand very close together. He apologizes, regretting that they did not just take the car instead. However, Fuyuki is thrilled by the close proximity, secretly grateful for the crowded event. As the train rocks back and forth, the rhythmic shaking combined with his recent overtime hours finally catches up to him. He accidentally dozes off, resting his head heavily on her shoulder. When he suddenly wakes up and quickly straightens his posture in embarrassment, she just smiles affectionately. Gently stroking his hair, she thanks him for working so hard all week just to make their date happen, letting him know she had a wonderful time. Finally arriving at the aquarium, Fuyuki excitedly admires the fish. Hara chuckles at her childlike enthusiasm, which briefly annoys her until he sweetly assures her that she simply looks adorable. Eager to capture the moment, she grabs his hand to take a picture but suddenly freezes in a panic. She spots her colleague, Tanaka, standing nearby. Fearing their secret marriage will be exposed, her husband suggests they leave immediately. However, she refuses to let the interruption ruin their date. Confident that the large crowd will keep them hidden, she leads him toward the dolphin show instead. Just as they sit down for the performance, Tanaka spots them and loudly questions their presence. Panic sets in, but she quickly covers for them, smoothly lying that the two team leaders are simply there gathering references for a new project. The co-worker easily buys the excuse, laughing off the absurd idea that the two of them could actually be dating. During the show, a massive splash from a dolphin completely ruins her clothes. Hara immediately hands her a handkerchief, subtly reminding her to dry off quickly since Tanaka is still there. After safely leaving the aquarium without blowing their cover, he expresses his immense relief. She hugs him affectionately and playfully asks if he was feeling a bit jealous. He bashfully admits that he was, making her smile and tease him for being so wonderfully easy to read. The couple happily walks away, hand in hand, completely unaware that someone else has just spotted their public display of affection. The next morning, Hara gets ready for work, eager to head out. However, Fuyuki stops him, playfully reminding him that he forgot something important. Since they cannot show any affection at the office, she insists on a proper goodbye while they are still home. Blushing at her teasing, he kisses her on the cheek before leaving her happily flustered. Meanwhile, the young woman who had spotted the couple the previous day is standing outside smoking. A drunk man approaches and persistently tries to hit on her, grabbing her arm when she refuses. A crowd gathers, but everyone ignores her except for Hara, who steps forward to intervene. Recognizing him from the day before, the woman quickly wraps her arm around his and loudly claims he is her husband. Suitably intimidated, the drunkard backs off and walks away. Afterward, she sincerely thanks him for stepping up when everyone else simply pretended not to notice. As they walk together, they are surprised to realize they are heading to the same office building. She shows him her company ID, introducing herself as Hokuhu Akine, a member of the script team. He is amazed, recognizing her as the brilliant writer whose masterpieces bring immense prestige to their company. She explains that she usually works from home, which is why they have never crossed paths. He then introduces himself, handing over his own ID card, and she heads inside. Later that day, while walking down a corridor, he hears his wife whispering to him. She pulls him into an empty office room, assuring him that the coast is clear. Before he can ask what is going on, she sweetly kisses his cheek, declaring it her revenge for his bold move that morning. However, they are completely unaware that Akine noticed the door close. Standing just outside the room, the writer smirks, finding the secret situation highly intriguing. Later at the office, Fuyuki walks past the smoking area and bumps into Akine. Surprised to see her, she learns Akine is only there for a presentation. As they walk together, they reminisce about their last meeting 2 years ago during the release of an older novel. Akine casually asks if she has gotten married since then. Startled, she nervously admits that she has, vaguely describing her husband as someone in a completely different profession. Amused by the secret, Akine stifles a laugh. Trying to change the subject, she asks about the theme of the upcoming project. Akine proudly reveals she is pivoting to a story about a secret workplace romance. Panicking internally, she questions if changing the plot this late is even possible, but Akine confidently boasts about her skills. Meanwhile, Hara spots the two women chatting in the hallway. Realizing they get along quite well, he mentally notes to stay on his guard so their secret is not exposed. Just as they pass by, she playfully winks at him. His face immediately flushes bright red, prompting a nearby coworker to ask if he is okay. Flustered, he quickly brushes it off. Later that evening, Fuyuki returns home from work to find him already there. He warmly welcomes her back, suggesting she take a seat and rest after a long day. As she sits beside him, he sweetly tells her she looks cute. However, she suddenly pauses and pulls back. Worried, he asks if he smells bad, but she gently reassures him before excusing herself to take a bath. Left alone, he decides to wait his turn patiently. When it is his turn to bathe, Fuyuki offers to help wash his hair. He feels a bit self-conscious about his dandruff, but he complies and sits down as instructed. She gently lathers his hair with shampoo and checks if the pressure is comfortable. Relaxing under her touch, he happily compares the soothing experience to getting a professional wash at a salon. Wanting to return the favor, he offers to wash her long hair next, but she politely declines, not wanting to trouble him. Ultimately, he realizes he never needs to visit a salon again when he has such a caring wife at home. During an office meeting, Akine actively opposes a producer's demand to cut the final scene of their game to save money. The producer insists that modern audiences prefer short, flashy content over long, complex narratives. Outraged on her friend's behalf, Fuyuki tries to intervene, but the writer gently stops her. Defeated, she admits that a lengthy story is meaningless if players are simply going to skip it, and she leaves the room to reconsider the script. Later, exhausted and visibly upset, she spaces out while walking toward her car. She nearly steps right into oncoming traffic, but Hera suddenly grabs her arm, pulling her back just in time. After he quickly releases her and apologizes for the sudden contact, she playfully teases him before sincerely thanking him for saving her life. Noticing her exhaustion, he asks if she has been losing sleep over a work argument. Still haunted by the producer's harsh critique, she accidentally voices her insecurities out loud, wondering if her writing is even good anymore. To her surprise, he passionately defends her work. Admitting he is a massive fan, he praises her brilliant use of foreshadowing, her deeply unique characters, and her ability to craft beautifully balanced narratives. Even with her upcoming secret office romance project, he expresses complete confidence that she will elevate the flashy concept into something profound. Overwhelmed by his genuine praise, she quickly turns her head away to hide her fiercely blushing face. Regaining her composure, she places what looks like a cigarette between her lips and confidently declares that her next story will be a masterpiece thanks to his encouragement. When he points out that she forgot to light it, she playfully reveals it is actually just a candy stick, noting that smoking while walking is bad manners anyway. The next day at the office, Akine approaches Hara to ask for his input on her new game's story. He happily agrees to help. However, Fuyuki happens to walk past them during the exchange and clearly feels a pang of jealousy. Later that evening, he is busy working at home when his wife approaches him, visibly upset. She confronts him about being far too friendly with his new coworker, pointing out their frequent conversations and recent shared commute. He gently explains that he is merely a huge fan helping with her story ideas, and that bumping into each other on the way to work was purely coincidental. Still pouting, she expresses how unfair it is that they cannot openly interact like that at work. Seeing her distress, he immediately shuts his laptop, gently wipes her tears, and pulls her into a warm hug, promising to dedicate all his attention to her while they are at home. Inwardly, he resolves to distance himself from the writer to give his wife peace of mind. True to his word, he begins avoiding the writer the following day. When she invites him to lunch, he politely declines, claiming he brought a bento box. Later, when she tries to call out to him in the hallway, he pretends not to hear her and walks right past. Eventually, he steps into an elevator, only to freeze when he realizes she is already inside. Trapped, he faces her as she demands to know why he is suddenly ignoring her. Nervous, he bluntly admits that his wife has become jealous of their interactions. Instead of being offended, she bursts into laughter, highly amused by the situation. After he sincerely apologizes for the misunderstanding, she asks him for a favor to make up for it, inviting him to stop by her place that evening for dinner. The following day at the office, Fuyuki is busy at her desk when Hara announces he is leaving for the day. Deciding to head out as well, she suddenly overhears Akin praising his hard work and casually asking what he wants for dinner before suggesting a trip to the supermarket. Completely unaware of the actual situation, the jealous wife immediately assumes her husband is heading to the writer's house and suspects he might be cheating. Meanwhile, Hara and Akin arrive at her apartment. She sets up a beautifully decorated table filled with delicious food, teasingly noting his flushed face. Before they can eat, her phone vibrates, and she steps away to take a work call. Left alone, he glances toward the window and is utterly shocked to see Fuyuki standing right there. Before he can even process how she found them, she rushes inside and grabs him in a tight hug. Hearing the writer returning from her call, the panicked couple quickly scrambles to hide inside a cramped wardrobe. Packed into the cramped wardrobe, he feels like he might suffocate while she panics about their secret office romance being exposed and the fact that they are technically trespassing. Suddenly, the wardrobe doors swing open, revealing a highly amused Akin staring down at them. After the couple awkwardly climbs out, the writer slams her hand on the table, laughing hysterically at their ridiculous stunt. Annoyed by the teasing, the protective wife tells her to find her own man and leave her husband alone. Still laughing, she flashes her own wedding ring, revealing that she is already happily married and perfectly content with her current partner. Shocked, Fuyuki demands to know when this happened. It turns out that Hara genuinely believed the writer had texted his wife an invitation to join them and her husband for dinner. Mischievously, the writer admits she purposely never sent the text, correctly guessing that the jealous wife would tail them anyway. Though frustrated by the unbelievable prank, the wife's anger fades when the writer offers her the delicious dinner as an apology. Impressed by the beautiful house, she learns that the writer's husband is actually a doctor. Just as she demands to hear the full story of their marriage, the front door opens and the mysterious husband finally arrives home. On Valentine's Day at the office, Fuyuki happily distributes high-quality chocolates to her female colleagues, who are thrilled by the fancy treats. When a male co-worker eagerly asks if she has anything for him, she casually hands him a basic piece of candy instead. Announcing that she is taking the rest of the day off, she quickly excuses herself, leaving the co-worker visibly disappointed. Later that day, she visits Akina's apartment to borrow her kitchen. Knowing she struggles with making sweets, she enlists the writer's help. Akini, having already finished her work quota for the day, gladly agrees to assist. As they search for a good recipe, the wife slyly asks if her friend's husband enjoys chocolate. The writer confirms that he eats a lot of it, prompting a knowing grin from her guest. Brushing past her friend's momentary confusion, she selects a recipe, and they begin baking. Together, they weigh out the chocolate, preheat the oven, and warm the butter. While mixing the batter, she eagerly tastes a spoonful, and lets the writer try some as well, before placing the mixture in the fridge to cool. That evening, Fuyuki waits at home, scrolling through her phone as the clock strikes 8. Hara finally arrives, looking completely exhausted. She excitedly welcomes him and mentions her homemade Valentine's chocolates, only to suddenly freeze in horror as she realizes she left them in her friend's fridge. She instantly becomes gloomy, calling herself the worst wife. However, he quickly comforts her, explaining that he is just drained from dealing with stressful software bugs and angry managers all day. Wanting to cheer him up, she prepares a hot cup of cocoa to replace the missing chocolates. She hands him the mug, hoping the warm drink will soothe his stress. Taking a sip, he smiles brightly, assuring her that his heart already feels much warmer. Fuyuki weighs herself one morning and is deeply disappointed by the number on the scale. Realizing that her constant desk work has ruined her posture and left her feeling sluggish, she becomes determined to make a healthy change. The following morning, she wakes up much earlier than usual at 5:30 a.m., while Hera is still fast asleep. Yawning, she changes into her gym clothes, heads to the living room, and casts a workout video onto the television. She begins the routine, but after just a minute, the exercises become far too difficult to keep up with. Deciding she cannot handle the intense video, she opts for a morning jog instead. Heading out into the sunny weather, she ends up enjoying the run, confidently thinking that this new routine will help her lose a couple of kilograms. Meanwhile, her husband is busy cooking breakfast at home. When she returns, he warmly welcomes her back and asks about her morning workout. Exhausted, she declares that she will only eat a healthy salad for breakfast. However, he surprises her by revealing a large, delicious stack of homemade pancakes, explaining that he wanted to treat her for the weekend. She stares at the clearly unhealthy meal, internally struggling over the fact that eating it will ruin her morning workout. Before she can decline, he sweetly explains that he made her favorite food because he has noticed how incredibly hard she has been working lately. Deeply moved by his thoughtful gesture, she throws her arms around him and gratefully accepts the meal. Ultimately, she decides that the immense happiness of a sweet breakfast with her husband is completely worth the expense of gaining a little extra weight. Outside the office, a group of young men surrounds Akini while she takes a break, relentlessly flirting with her and calling her pretty. She coldly brushes them off, but her icy demeanor only makes them more persistent. Suddenly, a man steps in, casually takes the candy cigarette from her lips, and firmly announces that she is his wife. Intimidated, the group immediately scatters. The newcomer is Tsukushi Masato, her husband. She complains that he took too long, to which he explains he was distracted by a large selection of new sweets. He warmly reaches out his hand, inviting her to hold it. Embarrassed, she refuses and tells him to stop being foolish. Despite her rejection, he cheerfully admits he is just happy to be by her side. Although she acts distant, she is secretly deeply in love with him. Her face flushes bright red, and her hands tremble as she silently swoons over how cool he looked saving her. She desperately wants to hold his hand, but is too self-conscious about her sweaty palms, finding his massive sweet tooth incredibly endearing for a doctor. A flashback reveals the whirlwind nature of their romance. On only their third day of dating, he suddenly proposed. When she asked why he was rushing, he simply suggested they submit their marriage registration the very next day. Back in the present, as she walks beside him, she happily realizes that today marks their 3-month anniversary. Since they both have the following day off, she looks forward to spending the entire weekend together. Later that evening, after enjoying dinner at home, he praises her delicious and healthy cooking. She playfully brushes off the compliment, noting that it would be terrible to have an unhealthy doctor in the house, but she secretly cherishes his constant praise. After chatting for a while, she stands up to take a bath. Ever the medical professional, he quickly advises against bathing immediately after a meal, warning her about digestion issues and heart strain. Annoyed by his sudden clinical lecture, she hilariously yells at him to stop playing doctor at home. A boy relentlessly teases a young girl with messy hair, snatching her hair clip and cruelly claiming that she could never look cute. Fuyuki and Akini overhear the commotion and quickly step in to defend the girl. They warn the bully that his behavior could easily get him into serious trouble. Instead of backing down, he insults them, calling them old women trying to act young. Unfazed, Fuyuki confidently tells him to come back to the same spot the next day, promising to transform the messy-haired girl into someone very cute. As they walk away together, the young girl feels completely confused. Seeing how radiant and confident the two women are, she tries to refuse their help, saying she has always looked plain and that a makeover would only waste their time. However, Fuyuki gently encourages her and asks if she wants her appearance to shine as much as her inner beauty. With Akini also reassuring her, Yuzuki finally agrees, secretly hoping she can really become as beautiful as the two women helping her. The trio head straight to a beauty salon, where Fuyuki warmly greets the stylist. Settling into the salon chair for the very first time, Yuzuki nervously explains that her busy mother usually cuts her hair at home to save money. When the stylist gently drapes a cape over her and asks if she fears the big change, the young girl smiles, admitting that she is more than happy. The stylist cheerfully gets to work, promising to make her look beautiful. Soon the haircut is finished, revealing a stylish short bob. Yuzuki is utterly stunned by her own reflection in the mirror, barely recognizing herself. Fuyuki adds a touch of light makeup, warmly noting that the young girl is already naturally cute. Akini then hands over the hair clip that the bully had snatched earlier. Seeing the accessory triggers a bittersweet memory for the young girl. In a flashback, she remembers returning home after a harsh day of being bullied, feeling completely insecure about her messy hair. Her hard-working mother greeted her with a warm smile and gifted her that exact hairpin, reassuring her daughter that she is a beautiful girl and that the accessory would suit her perfectly. Back in the present, she proudly fastens the meaningful hairpin into her new bob. Fuyuki asks if she is ready to face her tormentor the following day. With a confident smile, the newly transformed girl agrees. Before they leave the salon, the older woman leans in to teach her one final, secret technique. The next day, the trio returns to the office to confront the male co-worker as promised. When he turns around and sees Yuzuki, his eyes go wide in absolute shock at how incredibly cute she looks. Flustered, he internally panics, wildly guessing that she must have been hiding her beauty for another man. Trying to save face, he arrogantly stammers that her new look is better than expected and actually offers to be her boyfriend. Perfectly executing the secret technique she learned from Fuyuki, she shoots him a cold, dismissive glare and bluntly asks why she would ever be interested in a guy like him. She turns on her heel and walks away, leaving the bully completely heartbroken and utterly defeated. As she leaves, she privately wonders if she pulled it off correctly. At home, Fuyuki proudly shows Hara a picture of their newly transformed friend, Yuzuki. Looking at the high schooler's photo makes him nostalgic, triggering a flashback to his own high school days when he first met his future wife. Back in high school, he sits alone in the classroom playing a mobile game, completely ignoring the harsh whispers of the other girls who constantly mock him for being a loner. Suddenly, the most popular girl in school, Fuyuki, approaches his desk. She excitedly praises his high-level character and complains about her own terrible luck with the game's gacha system. Startled by her sudden attention, he nervously listens until another student calls her away to help with some makeup. As she leaves, he watches her go, absolutely certain he will never get another chance to speak to someone so far out of his league. Sometime later in the school library, he spots her struggling to reach a book on the top shelf. Wanting to help but realizing he is actually shorter than her, he quickly finds a step stool and offers it to her instead. Grateful she notices the book he is holding, he internally panics, fully expecting her to make fun of his geeky interests, but she completely surprises him by suddenly asking if he wants to create a video game together. She reveals a notebook full of her impressive sketches, explaining that her mother is an illustrator and inspired her to draw. Amazed by her incredible artistic talent, he eagerly agrees to the partnership. Over time, the two grow incredibly close, spending their days at school constantly chatting about games. Eventually, she visits his house for the first time to work on their project. Stepping into his bedroom, she compliments how tidy it is, which only makes him more nervous about having his crush in his private space. They sit down at his laptop to review the game's story. He admits he is completely stuck writing a scene after a romantic confession, since he has never experienced anything like that in real life. Seeing the opportunity, she boldly suggests that he practice the moment with her so he can better understand the scene he is writing. Blushing, he points out that they are not even a couple, but she smoothly counters that gaining prior experience is essential for their project. Just as they are about to hold hands, Hera's mother suddenly bursts into the bedroom to offer them some sweets. Catching them in the intimate moment, she immediately notes the awkward timing. He desperately begs his mother to stop talking, but she teasingly warns him not to get carried away with his very first girlfriend. Frustrated, he fiercely denies the relationship and questions the sudden abundance of snacks. Meanwhile, Fuyuki silently finds the mother's dramatic antics hilarious. Before finally leaving the room, the mother gleefully declares that she cannot wait for the girl to become her daughter-in-law, prompting her thoroughly embarrassed son to kick her out. Once they are alone again, he quickly apologizes for his mother's overbearing comments. However, she finds his dynamic with his family surprisingly charming. Realizing she might have pushed him too far, she apologizes and brushes the suggestion off as a joke. He accepts it, but privately wonders if she has already experienced something like that before. The next day at school, he rushes down the corridor, thrilled to finally tell her that their game is complete. He spots her and tries to share the good news, but is abruptly interrupted by two popular male classmates. The boys pester her, asking why she spends so much time with the quiet student and demanding she hang out with them instead. She flatly rejects their offer. Despite his usual fear of the popular kids, he bravely steps in to defend her. In response, the bullies aggressively shove him, causing him to fall and his laptop to crash hard onto the floor. Instead of apologizing, the bullies cruelly blame him for bringing the device to school in the first place. Fuyuki rushes to his side to check if he is okay. He reassures her that he is fine, and thankfully has a backup of their files. Relieved, she asks what he was trying to tell her earlier. Before he can answer, the bullies dismissively tell everyone to leave him alone and start loudly inviting the surrounding classmates to a karaoke outing after school. Not wanting to hold her back, he quietly encourages her to go have fun with the others. To everyone's absolute shock, she firmly turns down the invitation, proudly announcing that she is busy making a video game with him. The classmates are baffled, doubting his coding skills and confused by the pairing. She explains that she is the artist for the project. When the bullies continue to mock the idea, he confidently speaks up, loudly praising her incredibly beautiful and cute drawings. Annoyed, one of the bullies grabs his shoulder and mockingly asks if he actually likes her that much. Without a second thought, he bluntly confesses that he does. The sudden, genuine confession shocks the entire hallway and sends his own face into a deep blush. He immediately panics, terrified that his careless slip-up will completely ruin their friendship and end their project. As the bullies cruelly tell her to dump him, he looks up to see that she is also blushing furiously. The classmates are completely bewildered by Fuyuki's deeply flustered reaction, as she is usually so calm and composed. She nervously stammers that anyone would be embarrassed by such a sudden public confession before turning on her heel and sprinting down the corridor. Hara immediately chases after her, eventually catching up and reaching out to hold her hand to stop her. Catching his breath, he quickly apologizes for his careless words, assuming that an unwanted confession from an unpopular guy like him must have been incredibly irritating for her to deal with in front of everyone. Frustrated by his constant self-deprecation, she fiercely scolds his low self-esteem. She then reveals a surprising secret. The obscure mobile game he was playing on the day they first met was actually worked on by her mother. She had been absolutely overjoyed to see him genuinely enjoying it. Furthermore, she shares that while other students had always mocked her sketches, his sincere praise meant the world to her. Overcome with emotion, she blurts out that she loves him too. He shouts in pure shock, completely unable to process that his feelings are actually mutual. Suddenly embarrassed by her own bold confession, she frantically backpedals, stammering that she might just mean it, as a friend. Utterly confused by the mixed signals, he just awkwardly nods along. However, taking advantage of the tender moment, she shyly references their earlier conversation at his house. Blushing furiously, the two finally share a shy first kiss. Back in the present day, she gently taps his shoulder, pulling him out of his nostalgic trance. She softly admits that she was just reminiscing about their high school days, and he smiles, revealing he was thinking about the same memory. Noting that their deep connection has not changed at all since they were teenagers, she sweetly asks him to stay by her side forever and ever. He happily promises to do so. However, unbeknownst to the happily married couple, a mysterious figure is secretly browsing the internet, actively searching for ways to force a couple to get a divorce. Fuyuki checks Hara's temperature in the morning and discovers he is running a very high fever. Despite his obvious illness, the dedicated employee stubbornly insists he can still go to the office. She playfully scolds him for being such a corporate slave, eventually convincing him to stay home and rest. Since she is already running late for work, she prepares to leave but cheekily tries to hug him, joking that if she catches his cold, she might get to stay home too. Knowing her exact plan, he gently pushes her away to protect her. However, seeing how charmingly he handles the situation makes her blush, and she insists on hugging him anyway, saying she wants to cheer him up before leaving. After a sweet embrace, she heads off to work, reminding him to call if he needs anything. Left entirely alone in the apartment, he eventually realizes it is time to take his medication. He weakly gets out of bed and stumbles toward the kitchen, his steps incredibly wobbly. Feeling much worse than he initially thought, he decides to text his wife to pick up some supplies on her way back. However, before he can even send the message, his breathing becomes heavy. He drops his phone and collapses onto the floor, too weak to move. Sometime later, the front door suddenly opens. Still lying helplessly on the ground, he weakly assumes his wife has returned early to check on him. Instead, a completely different woman steps inside, chillingly expressing her relief at having a duplicate key. Looking down at his helpless state, the intruder heavily criticizes his wife for leaving him alone while he is sick. She eerily declares that instead of an extroverted, outgoing woman, he should have married a devoted, gloomy person exactly like her. Recognizing the deeply unsettling voice, he forces himself to look up and asks why Satsuki is in his home. Greeting him as if no time has passed, Satsuki carefully lifts him into her arms. She disturbingly promises that everything will be fine now, offering to keep him by her side and take care of him forever so he will never have to work again. A flashback reveals that during his childhood, Hara would often cry in the comforting arms of his older sister figure, Satsuki. Back in the present, he slowly regains consciousness to the sound of her voice noting his pain. He opens his eyes to find himself in a bed, startled and confused about his whereabouts. She casually explains that they are in his old childhood bedroom. This jogs his memory. When he first announced his marriage to Fuyuki, his fiercely possessive sister complained relentlessly for an entire month, To finally appease her, he had gifted her his old room. She then shows him a text message on her phone, claiming he reached out to her for help, which is why she brought him here. Realizing his feverish mistake, he internally panics, realizing he accidentally texted her instead of his wife. When he asks for his own phone, she smoothly lies, claiming she forgot to bring it, but promises that their mother will inform his wife about his location. She also assures him that she has already notified his workplace about his sick leave, reasoning that staying there will keep him from infecting his wife. He nervously accepts the situation. Feeling ill, he requests to use the bathroom, insisting he is too weak to walk alone. She tightly grabs his hand and guides him there. As he steps inside, she waits right outside the door, secretly holding both of their identical cell phones in her hands. She carefully examines the devices, plotting to use his phone for her sinister plan. When he emerges and asks what she is doing, she deflects, obsessively declaring that she is always focused on taking care of him. He gently advises her to start dedicating some time to her own life instead. Meanwhile, at the office, Fuyuki is working at an incredible pace. Her co-worker, Tanaka, is highly impressed by her sudden burst of productivity. In reality, the devoted wife is just terrified that her husband might collapse from his high fever, so she is desperately rushing to finish her tasks to get home as soon as possible. Suddenly, her phone buzzes with a new message from her husband's number. Reading the text, she screams in pure shock. The message coldly states that they are incompatible and demands an immediate divorce. While Hara sleeps peacefully, it is revealed that Satsuki has had his phone the entire time. She maliciously crafted and sent the devastating text message to Fuyuki, demanding a divorce and telling her to pack her bags. Putting the device down, she figures that if her plan succeeds, she will successfully steal her little brother back. Her ultimate goal is to buy a house where the two of them can live happily together. To fund this twisted dream, she needs to earn another 100 million yen, so she immediately returns to her work as an investor. Later, she heads down to the lounge to greet their mother, who has just returned home. The mother anxiously asks about her son's condition and considers canceling an upcoming weekend trip to stay and help. However, Satsuki quickly discourages the idea, convincing the older woman to go on the vacation by promising to take complete care of him herself. She even lies that she will inform his wife about the arrangement. Heading back upstairs, she gleefully anticipates spending the next few days entirely alone with him. She gently feels his forehead to check his temperature, noting that he still needs to recover. Suddenly, she hears unexpected voices echoing from the downstairs hallway. Suspecting the worst, she sprints back down and is horrified to find Fuyuki chatting amicably with their mother. Fuyuki warmly greets her, noting how long it has been since they last saw each other. Instead of responding normally, Satsuki timidly hides behind her mother, faking the role of a shy, crying girl. Fuyuki finds the bashful behavior endearing, completely unaware that the other woman is internally seething over her extroverted presence. The mother then warmly invites her daughter-in-law inside, asking if she has the weekend off. When she confirms she is free, the mother excitedly suggests she stay over to help care for Hara, completely ruining her plan to spend time alone with him. The following day, the parents leave for their vacation, leaving Satsuki and Fuyuki alone in the house. Satsuki immediately feels incredibly awkward and displeased with the arrangement. Fuyuki announces she is going upstairs to check on Hara. As she heads up the steps, Satsuki internally panics, realizing she has not spoken to anyone outside her family in a long time and feels entirely unable to socialize. Suddenly, Fuyuki turns around and flashes her a warm, bright smile. While Satsuki is deeply suspicious of the friendly gesture, Fuyuki is actually just thinking about how cute the shy girl is. Realizing her sister-in-law loves Hara but dislikes her, she wonders what she can do to get along better. Entering the bedroom, she is happily greeted by Hara. She immediately wraps him in a tight hug, relieved to feel that his fever has slightly gone down. Feeling jealous, Satsuki also steps forward to hug him. The sudden attention makes him feel overwhelmed, causing him to instantly faint again. Later in the kitchen, Fuyuki asks if she knows how to make porridge. Satsuki hesitantly admits she cannot cook. Frustrated, she realizes that instead of breaking the couple apart, she is only giving Fuyuki a chance to look like a perfect, caring wife. Fuyuki kindly offers to teach her the simple recipe. Satsuki is briefly touched by the genuine kindness, but quickly reminds herself to stay cautious around her brother's wife. While they prepare the food, Fuyuki casually asks if she was the one who sent the fake divorce text earlier. Satsuki internally panics and stammers out a denial. Her mind races, assuming that if Fuyuki already knew about the sabotage, all the earlier kindness was actually just arrogant pity. Feeling deeply humiliated, she silently vows to prove her superiority. In reality, Fuyuki simply thinks the fake text was a cute, harmless prank from a sister who loves her brother way too much. Having dealt with similar overprotective antics from his family 10 times before, she is completely unfazed by the situation. A flashback reveals the tragic origins of Satsuki's obsession. During middle school, she suddenly gains weight and becomes the target of severe, relentless bullying. One day, her cruel classmates trick her into a washroom and lock her inside. Ignoring her desperate pleas to be let out, the bullies hurl terrible insults at her and splash her with water. Listening to them casually chat about their friends and boyfriends, she silently wonders why girls with such perfect lives feel the need to be so viciously cruel to her. Returning home completely soaked, she is quickly comforted by her mother, but the trauma causes her to become a complete shut-in. Despite her isolation, Hera stays faithfully by her side to cheer her up, even making her homemade sandwiches. Noticing she spends all her time on the computer, he asks about her hobbies. She explains that she is teaching herself stock trading and video game coding. Since he loves games, he eagerly asks her to teach him. Spending her days bonding with him over coding brings her immense happiness, making her forget about her ruined school life entirely. Back in the present, Satsuki bitterly resents Fuyuki for stealing that one source of happiness away from her. Believing her sister-in-law already has a perfect, fulfilling life, she quietly resolves to challenge Fuyuki in her own way. Her dark plotting is abruptly interrupted when Fuyuki cheerfully pulls out a massive bag of sweets and excitedly invites her to have a girls' party. Completely caught off guard, having never been invited to a girls' party in her entire life, Satsuki blushes furiously. She timidly requests a potato snack, and since she is too flustered to say anything else, the two women simply sit together and binge-watch the movie. The next morning, Hara wakes up fully recovered. While Satsuki internally laments her failed plot to break the couple apart, Fuyuki suggests he rest for one more day. She then cheerfully invites Satsuki to go shopping for new clothes. Though she tries to decline by insisting she can just shop online, Hera encourages her to go and requests she pick up some clothing for him from a shop near the station. Unable to refuse him, the two women head to the mall together. Navigating the crowded mall, Satsuki feels incredibly anxious and out of place. Fuyuki leads her into a boutique and begins picking out dresses. Overwhelmed, she feels like crying until she is handed a beautiful but extremely expensive dress to try on. When she steps out of the fitting room, Fuyuki is absolutely thrilled with the look and immediately heads to the register to purchase it. When Satsuki frantically tries to pay for it herself, Fuyuki reveals that the dress is an early birthday gift from both her and Hara. Speechless, she sincerely thanks her. While waiting for the transaction to finish, Satsuki is suddenly approached by one of her cruel middle school bullies. The bully mocks her appearance and assumes she is unemployed. When she defensively reveals her lucrative career as an investor, the bully immediately tries to guilt-trip her into lending money, citing the struggles of being a single mother. Anxious to avoid a scene, she genuinely considers paying the woman just to make her go away. Suddenly, Fuyuki steps in to fiercely defend Satsuki. She calls out the bully for wearing high-end designer clothes while begging for handouts and firmly states that the investor's hard-earned money will not be given to someone playing the victim. Humiliated, the bully clenches her teeth and storms off. As they walk home together, Satsuki is deeply confused and asks why Fuyuki would protect someone who has been constantly harassing her. Utterly surprised, Fuyuki tearfully admits that she genuinely thought the sabotage attempts were just cute pranks and expresses her desperate desire for them to get along. Touched by the emotional confession, Satsuki finally drops her guard. She compromises, agreeing to hang out occasionally, as long as Hara is there too. Thrilled by the breakthrough, Fuyuki excitedly promises to visit them once a week. Summer arrives, and the office colleagues take a group trip to the beach. A group of random men spots Fuyuki and Akine from afar, immediately admiring their beauty. They note that the former looks like a stunning model, while the latter is a gorgeous short-haired beauty. The onlookers watch as another group of handsome men attempts to flirt with the two women, only to be swiftly rejected and sent walking. Assuming they have no chance either, the onlookers suddenly notice two average-looking men approaching the beautiful women. Unbeknownst to the crowd, these men are actually Hara and Masato. Seeing the women happily welcome the newcomers, the onlookers mistakenly believe the two men just successfully picked them up, hilariously giving the random guys false hope that looks do not matter. As the beach party officially begins, Fuyuki eagerly invites everyone to swim. Akine passes on the offer, claiming she cannot swim, and Masato agrees to stay behind on the sand to watch their belongings. Hera compliments how radiant his wife looks in the intense summer sun, and the two head toward the water. Left entirely alone on the beach, Masato playfully teases his wife, suggesting she only pretended she could not swim just to secure some alone time with him. She stubbornly denies it, but her furiously blushing face easily gives her away. Meanwhile, out in the ocean, Hera warns Fuyuki that the water is getting quite deep. She confidently assures him that she feels perfectly safe as long as he is by her side, Taking advantage of the murky water, he boldly reaches down to grab her hand. Flustered by the public display of affection, she gently pulls back and says they should save the close hug for home. However, despite her bold, romantic promise, the exhausting beach trip completely drains their energy, and the couple ends up falling fast asleep the very second they return to their apartment. Fuyuki visits a convenience store and buys some sweet manju, knowing it is Hara's favorite. While checking out, a male clerk approaches her, confessing that she caught his eye and asking her out to dinner. She politely declines, blushing as she mentions her exciting dinner plans with her husband, leaving the clerk completely heartbroken. Arriving at the office, she works with incredible speed and precision. Her female co-workers admire her as the MVP of the design department, noting her exceptional motivation. In reality, her productivity is entirely driven by her eagerness to finish work and spend the rest of the evening on her dinner date. However, she soon notices a commotion in the development department and walks over to investigate. Hara quietly explains that his team is having trouble with some data due that day. She whispers to ask if he will still make their date, and he warmly assures her that he is looking forward to it before being called away by a teammate. As night falls, the development team finally solves the issue. He is relieved, thinking he can still make the reservation, but his phone suddenly vibrates with a last-minute bug fix request that must be completed by the end of the day. The rest of the team groans at the unreasonable demand, noting it is only a one-person job. Ultimately, he volunteers to stay behind alone to finish the work, and Fuyuki loyally decides to stay at the office with him. He repeatedly apologizes for ruining their evening plans, admitting he still needs another hour to finish coding. She gently stops his apologies, pointing out that while work deadlines cannot be moved, dinner reservations easily can. Hearing his stomach growl from skipping lunch, she reveals the manju she bought that morning. They share the sweet treat, which immediately revitalizes his tired body. After eating, she affectionately leans her head on his shoulder, happily admitting how nice it is to just sit beside him in their empty room. Smiling back at her, she cheerfully suggests they grab some casual ramen together once he finishes his task. The following day at the office, the team welcomes a new member to the design department, Nishino Rumika. Wanting to integrate her smoothly, Fuyuki assigns Tanaka to be her mentor. Although initially caught off guard by the sudden responsibility, he agrees, secretly finding the recruit adorable. Sitting down at their desks, he assesses her skills. Rumika boldly boasts that she is an absolute expert, capable of handling almost anything. He tests her with a simple assignment, which she completes incredibly fast, teasingly calling him a loser when he admits the same task took him a full day as a rookie. Amused but slightly annoyed by her cocky attitude, he hands her a much harder project. An hour later, she is completely stumped and exhausted. He playfully mocks her for being all talk, but quickly steps in to guide her through the complex design process. While he helps her, she casually gives him a silly nickname and asks about his age. He firmly corrects her overly familiar tone, reminding her to respect her 25-year-old senior. Her constant stream of questions ends up severely delaying his own work. When Fuyuki stops by to check on his daily data progress, she is surprised to find the usually efficient worker falling behind. Flustered, he apologizes and asks for a little more time to finish. After finally completing his own tasks, he realizes Rumika has been completely silent since the check-in. She shyly admits she got stuck on a function, but was too worried about getting him scolded by their boss again to ask for help. Touched by her consideration, he affectionately calls her an idiot and reassures her that training rookies is a core part of his job. He praises her hard work on her first day and sends her home. She respectfully bows and addresses him properly as her senior, bringing a proud smile to his face. Later, after Fuyuki swiftly rejects his casual offer to grab drinks, the recruit walks by and formally bids him a good evening, leaving him humorously wondering if his status has already been downgraded from a cool mentor to just a regular co-worker. During a lively company drinking party, the engineering and design departments happen to book adjacent rooms at the same venue. On the engineering side, Hara sticks to oolong tea while chatting with his co-workers. When a male colleague suggests merging the two parties later specifically to see a drunk Fuyuki, a menacingly protective Hara quickly shuts the idea down, firmly reminding the group that she is a married woman. Curious female co-workers then ask him about his own wife. He passionately gushes over her, praising her beauty, her adorable spoiled side, her unyielding dedication, and her kind tolerance. The entire table is left completely amazed by how head over heels he is for his mysterious spouse. Meanwhile, in the design department's room, Fuyuki checks in on the new recruit, Rumika. The confident rookie boasts about adjusting perfectly, though Tanaka quickly points out her recent mistakes. Akine gently defends the rookie, noting that making mistakes is how young employees gain experience. Spotting the older writer drinking hot sake, the rookie curiously asks about it, though Tanaka quickly warns her. She takes a small sip and playfully teases Tanaka-senpai for sticking to basic beer. Watching their bickering, Fuyuki and Akini warmly note how well the two get along. Feeling slightly tipsy herself, Fuyuki excuses herself to the restroom. On her way back, she sneaks a peek into the engineering department's room to check on her husband. She spots him happily laughing with a female coworker and feels a sudden pang of jealousy. Her jealousy instantly turns to pure fury when she overhears him explicitly calling the girl cute and offering to take her home. Completely misinterpreting the situation out of context, an enraged Fuyuki marches straight back to her own table and aggressively gulps down her drink. Ignoring a panicked Akine, the now heavily intoxicated wife proudly declares that she is going to crash the engineering team's party. Fuyuki rushes into the engineering room, clearly drunk, and demands to know if Hara really promised to take another girl home. Seeing how intoxicated she is, Hara offers her some water, but she insists on an answer. Calmly, he holds up a limited edition panda pudding and explains that he was talking about bringing dessert home for her, not a girl. Embarrassed by her mistake, Fuyuki bursts into laughter. Just then, Akina hurries in, apologizes for the interruption, and helps Fuyuki leave so their relationship stays private. The male coworkers are left staring, amazed at how cute Fuyuki looks when drunk. Hara stays quiet but feels a twinge of jealousy as the other men admire her. Outside, Akine struggles to keep Fuyuki awake. Less than 5 minutes later, Masato pulls up in his car. He explains that he was waiting nearby to make sure no strangers bothered Akine. As Fuyuki and Akine get in, she lights a cigarette. When he mentions the smell might bother passengers, she insists on smoking, saying it helps her feel relaxed. Smiling at her rare display of possessive jealousy, he warmly reassures her that he would never pick up anyone else. Later at home, Fuyuki rests on her bed when Hara finally returns. He wakes her to remind her to remove her makeup. Noticing his pouty mood, she asks if he's upset. He half-jokingly admits he feels a little jealous, saying he should be the only one allowed to see her acting so cute. After his confession, he flops face first onto the bed. She realizes, surprised, that he actually drank alcohol at the party to cope with his frustration, even though he has a notoriously weak tolerance.